Well, fiends, it seems Mark's late-night descent took a turn for the eerie, stepping into an elevator ride that was more down under than downtown. Don't let this tale descend without pressing that subscribe button and ringing the bell icon, or you might just miss your floor to the next horrifying story. Now let's open the doors to the elevator to nowhere. Mark sat alone in his office, the glow from his desk lamp casting long shadows across the room. It was well past 9, the bustling energy of daytime replaced by a profound silence that enveloped the empty building. Hours spent scrutinizing figures and reports had left his eyes weary. Working late had become his norm since Sarah's passing 2 years ago. The office's quiet was a kinder companion than the echoing silence of his apartment, a constant reminder of a life that once was. He glanced at a photo of Sarah on his desk, her smile still radiant, yet it brought a dull ache of absence. With a heavy sigh, he packed his belongings and switched off the lamp. The high-rise, an old structure in downtown Boston, had its quirks: creaking pipes, flickering lights, and an elevator that seemed to have a mind of its own. As Mark stepped inside the elevator and pressed the lobby button, the doors closed with a shudder, and it began its descent. Abruptly, the elevator jolted, throwing Mark against the wall. The lights flickered ominously, and a sinking feeling settled in his stomach. "Come on, not tonight," Mark muttered, pressing the alarm button, but it remained silent. The elevator lurched back to life, descending further. Beyond the ground floor, it plunged into the unknown. When it halted, the doors opened with a reluctant creak. Stepping out, Mark found himself in a decaying corridor that mirrored his office floor. The carpet was moldy, walls stained with dampness. The air, thick with the smell of mildew and something metallic, was suffocating. Mark's heart raced. "Hello? Is anyone there?" His voice echoed down the dark corridor, meeting no response but the distant dripping of water. The lights flickered, casting eerie shadows, and a chill ran down his spine. He wasn't alone. A faint whisper seemed to drift through the air, barely audible. Mark strained his ears, trying to make sense of it. "Who's there?" he called out, his voice edged with fear. But the whisper faded as quickly as it appeared, leaving him in unnerving silence. Mark's rational mind urged him to return to the elevator, but an overwhelming sense of dread rooted him to the spot. He took a tentative step forward, each creak of the floorboards echoing in the oppressive silence. The building, a mere shell of its date himself, now felt like a living entity, watching and waiting in the shadows. As Mark ventured deeper into the unknown, he realized that this was no ordinary night. He had stepped into a nightmare, a twisted echo of reality where time and logic held no sway. The night had turned extraordinary, and the true nature of his journey was only just beginning. In the dim light of the subterranean corridor, Mark felt the oppressive weight of the unknown bearing down on him. The stale air was thick with the scent of decay, making each breath a struggle against revulsion. He moved cautiously, his footsteps muffled by the moldy carpet, feeling the gaze of unseen watchers prickling at the back of his neck. "Hello?" Mark's voice, tentative at first, grew in volume, a desperate attempt to shatter the suffocating silence. No answer came, only the soft, mocking echo of his own voice bouncing off the peeling walls. He glanced back at the elevator, its doors now ominously shut, a silent sentinel guarding the path back to a world that suddenly felt very distant. With each step, the corridor seemed to stretch and contort, as if the building itself was reshaping around him. The flickering lights cast grotesque shadows that danced along the walls, creating unsettling shapes that twisted and turned in Mark's peripheral vision. He could feel his heart pounding in his chest, a rapid drumbeat echoing the fear that gripped him. As he ventured further, Mark noticed doors lining the corridor, each one slightly ajar, revealing glimpses of abandoned offices within. Desks were strewn with yellowed papers, chairs overturned, and the once busy workspaces were now tombs of forgotten endeavors. He pushed one door open, the creaking of its hinges sounding like a scream in the quiet. The room beyond was shrouded in shadows. Mark's eyes scanned the decay, settling on a framed photograph on the desk, obscured by layers of dust. It was a picture of people he didn't recognize, smiling and unaware of the fate that awaited their workplace. He felt a kinship with these ghosts of the past, trapped as he was in this warped reflection of his own reality. A sudden noise, the scuttling of feet, snapped Mark back to the present. His head whipped around, searching the darkness. "Who's there?" he demanded, his voice a mix of fear and defiance. But again, only silence answered, a silence that seemed to mock his growing terror. He left the room, continuing his descent into the heart of the building's mystery. The further he went, the more the environment deteriorated. Ceilings bore water damage, the walls were cracked and stained, and the air grew colder, a chill that seeped into his bones. Mark's mind raced with possibilities, each more unsettling than the last. Was this a dream, a hallucination, or had he somehow stumbled into a hidden, forgotten part of the building, a place where the echoes of the past still lingered? His train of thought was interrupted by a figure emerging from the shadows ahead. An old man, bent with age, dressed in a janitor's uniform. His face was lined with years of toil, and his eyes held a depth of sadness that spoke of untold stories. "Who are you?" Mark asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The old man raised a finger to his lips, a gesture commanding silence. "You shouldn't be here," he said, his voice a raspy whisper. "This place, it's not what it seems. It's more than just walls and floors. It's alive in its way, and it doesn't take kindly to visitors." Before Mark could reply, the janitor turned and disappeared back into the shadows, leaving him alone once more in the twisting corridors. The encounter left Mark with more questions than answers. What did the old man mean? How was this place alive? And most importantly, how could he escape it? His journey into the unknown continued, each step taking him deeper into the heart of a building that was more than just a structure of steel and concrete. It was a labyrinth of secrets and sorrows, and Mark was its latest captive, ensnared in its eerie, timeless grasp. Mark's exploration led him deeper into the labyrinthine bowels of the building, each corridor and room revealing more of its decaying heart. The air grew increasingly frigid, as if the building itself exhaled a cold breath of the forgotten and forlorn. Mark's mind reeled with the surreal nature of his surroundings, his thoughts a whirlpool of disbelief and dread. The walls whispered with the echoes of 1,000 lost souls, and the very air seemed thick with their untold stories. Amidst this desolation, Mark's thoughts turned involuntarily to Sarah. Her memory, usually a source of comfort, now seemed to amplify his isolation. He could almost hear her voice, a soothing balm in this sea of madness. He stumbled upon a room unlike the others. It was an archive, its shelves burdened with dusty tomes and yellowed papers. The air was heavy with the musty scent of age, and the silence was punctuated by the faint rustling of paper. Mark's fingers traced the spines of the books, feeling the weight of history within them. He pulled out a leather-bound journal, its pages brittle with age. The handwriting was a meticulous script, detailing the building's construction over a century ago. Mark's eyes widened as he read about the site's previous incarnation, an asylum known for its brutal treatment of patients. The journal hinted at dark events, unexplained disappearances, and rumors of hauntings. A cold shiver ran down Mark's spine as he realized the foundation upon which his familiar world was built. His exploration of the archives revealed more horrors. Newspaper clippings detailed tragic accidents during the building's construction, and personal accounts told of strange occurrences, unexplained noises, and sightings of apparitions. It was as if the building had been cursed from the very beginning, its history a tapestry woven with tragedy and sorrow. As Mark delved deeper into the archives, the air around him grew colder, and the shadows seemed to press in closer. The building's tragic past seemed to come alive around him. Whispers filled the room, each syllable a breath of the building's dark soul. He heard a soft sobbing from a corner of the room. Turning, he saw a figure, a woman, huddled against the wall. Her clothes were from another era, and her eyes were filled with an unspeakable sadness. "Help us," she whispered, before fading away like mist. Mark staggered back, his heart pounding. The line between the living and the dead, the past and the present, was blurring. The building was more than a structure. It was a repository of anguish and despair. He realized with a growing sense of horror that he was not just an unwilling visitor, but a part of its continuum of suffering. A sudden sound jolted him from his thoughts, a distant banging, rhythmic and persistent. It seemed to be calling him, guiding him deeper into the building's heart. With a mix of trepidation and determination, Mark followed the sound, each step taking him further into the unknown. The corridors twisted and turned, leading him to a part of the building that felt untouched by time. Here, the walls were pristine, the air less oppressive. The banging grew louder, more insistent, until Mark found himself in front of a heavy, wooden door. The sound was coming from beyond it, a summons that could not be ignored. Gathering his courage, Mark pushed the door open. What lay beyond was a revelation, a key to understanding the building's enigmatic heart, and possibly a way to escape the nightmare in which he found himself ensnared. Mark pushed open the heavy wooden door, the hinges groaning in protest, as if reluctant to reveal the secrets held within. The room beyond was a stark contrast to the decay he had traversed. It was an office, but one that seemed frozen in time, untouched by the years of neglect that had claimed the rest of the building. The air was still, heavy with anticipation. In the center of the room stood an old, ornate desk, lit by the ghostly glow of a single lamp. On it lay a ledger, its pages filled with names and dates, the ink faded but still legible. As Mark scanned the pages, a chilling realization dawned on him. These were not just names. They were the souls bound to the building, trapped in its endless cycle of sorrow. His eyes stopped at a particular entry, the name Sarah. His heart skipped a beat. It couldn't be, he thought, but the dates matched, the day she had passed away. Mark felt a surge of emotion, a mix of hope and dread. Was Sarah here in this twisted echo of reality? The room seemed to close in around him, the walls pulsating with a rhythm that matched his racing heartbeat. He heard the faint sound of an elevator bell, distant yet insistent. Drawn by a force beyond his understanding, Mark left the room and followed the sound. The corridors twisted and turned, leading him in circles, yet he persisted, driven by the need to find Sarah, to find answers. The sound of the elevator grew louder, guiding him through the maze of hallways. Finally, he stood before the elevator, its doors open like a mouth, waiting to devour him. He stepped inside, the doors closing with a finality that echoed in his soul. The elevator began to ascend, the numbers on the panel climbing higher and higher, surpassing the highest floor of the building he knew. The elevator came to a halt, the doors opening to reveal the lobby he had left what seemed like a lifetime ago. But it was different. The decor, the clothing of the people milling about, all spoke of a different era. The date on a discarded newspaper confirmed his fear. He had been transported back in time to the day the building first opened. Mark stepped out into this past world, a ghost amongst the living. He tried to interact with the people around him, but they passed through him, oblivious to his presence. He was a specter, a part of the building's haunted history. As he wandered through the lobby, he caught a glimpse of a familiar figure, Sarah, young and vibrant. She walked past him, close enough to touch, yet a world away. Mark reached out, his hand passing through her. She paused, a frown crossing her face as if she sensed something, then moved on. Mark understood then that he was trapped in an endless loop, a part of the building's tragic tapestry. He was destined to wander its halls, a witness to its past and its unending present. The realization was a weight, heavier than the building itself, pressing down on him. The elevator doors closed and the lobby faded away, leaving Mark alone in the silence of his eternal prison. The building had claimed another soul, its history enriched by one more tale of loss and longing. Mark was now a part of its legacy, a character in the story of the elevator to nowhere. Forever searching for an escape that would never come. And just when Mark thought he could escape the confines of his concrete crypt, he found himself in a loop of loss and longing, proving some elevators go up, some go down, and some just go nowhere. If this tale of endless descent gave you the chills, leave a comment below on how you would escape the building's bone-chilling embrace. Fright fans, click next for more chills and hit subscribe to join our ghastly gang. You see, who dares to miss out, so watch our next video.